Lu Wan is a beautiful girl with a dream of becoming a doctor to heal and save lives. However, she seemed to be daydreaming about a distant future, while her exam paper remained unfinished, prompting her teacher to remind her to focus and pull herself together. Lu Wan returned to her fantasy, picturing herself as a talented doctor, and used those daydreams to answer the multiple-choice questions on the exam. Only when the time was up did she frantically start choosing random answers to submit her paper on time. Meanwhile, at the gymnasium, the male lead, Ren Chu, appeared. He was a talented, yet aloof young man. As Lu Wan was running, she bumped into Jia Xian. It was Jia Xian's birthday, and Lu Wan could only awkwardly offer him birthday wishes. Jia Xian asked Lu Wan to meet him again that evening, and thoughtfully gifted her a bottle of soy milk. This gesture sent her heart aflutter, making her wonder if he might confess his feelings for her. Lu Wan excitedly went to her club, and immediately started baking a cake for Jia Xian. She planned to draw a heart on it, but accidentally made it look like an anatomical heart instead, which looked quite funny. The next morning, Lu Wan cheerfully skipped to school with the cake in hand, oblivious to her surroundings. She almost collided with Ren Chu, but his quick reflexes on his bike saved them both from a collision. They stared at each other for a few seconds, frozen in place. Lu Wan quickly collected herself and apologized profusely. Ren Chu, realizing he was also at fault, simply nodded in acknowledgement. Lu Wan, determined to make amends, shoved a handful of candy into his hand and dashed off. Later that day, Ren Chu attended the freshman orientation at the medical school he was enrolled in. Despite being shown around by a professor, he remained true to his name, his demeanor as cold as ever. When a female student boasted about her entrance exam scores, Ren Chu immediately called her out, stating that she was just trying too hard to fit in at the prestigious school, implying her skills weren't all that. Before the orientation ended, he left the freshmen with a thought-provoking statement to choose a major they were truly passionate about, rather than following the crowd, leaving them speechless. Meanwhile, Lu Wan returned to her dorm, bubbling with excitement. She excitedly told her roommate about Jia Xian's impending confession. Her roommate was happy for her, but cautioned her to keep her relationship under wraps if she started dating him, advising her not to share everything with her best friend, lest she lose both her boyfriend and her best friend. Lu Wan just laughed it off, not paying much attention, and began to prepare for her date. Dressed in a pretty dress, Lu Wan headed to her date with Jia Xian. Before entering the restaurant, she paused in front of the mirror to check her appearance, unaware that inside, Ren Chu and his friends were having dinner together, and happened to catch a glimpse of her through the window, charmed by her adorableness. Lu Wan then proceeded into a hotel room, where a candlelit dinner awaited her. Jia Xian showed up, completely drunk. His words were full of suggestive undertones, leading Lu Wan to believe that he was about to confess his feelings for her. She was overjoyed, thinking that she was about to embark on a sweet romance. But then came the crushing blow. Jia Xian blurted out that he only saw her as a friend. To add insult to injury, the person he had been secretly in love with for the past 2 years was Liang Xia, Lu Wan's best friend. Devastated, Lu Wan burst into tears. Despite her heartbreak, she tried to encourage Jia Xian to be brave and confess his feelings to Liang Xia, assuring him that no one would stand in his way. Right then and there, Jia Xian called Liang Xia and poured his heart out, leaving Lu Wan feeling utterly crushed. She hugged the cake she had carefully made and ate it between sobs, her heart aching with every bite. Gu Chao arrived, rousing Lu Wan from her drunken stupor. She had downed 3 bottles of cider and was lamenting about Jia Xian's rejection, but Gu Chao was unfazed, quickly suggesting that Lu Wan find a new handsome guy to move on with. After a moment of thought, Lu Wan decided on Ren Chu as her next target. The girls emerged from the private room, only to realize they'd wandered into the men's restroom. Their entire conversation, overheard by Ren Chu's friends. Ren Chu himself was within earshot, much to their horror. As a result, by the next morning, rumors spread like wildfire throughout the school that Lu Wan was trying to woo the campus heartthrob, infuriating his devoted fangirls. Walking to class, Lu Wan felt everyone's eyes on her. She decided to come clean to Ren Chu at the swimming pool, only to find him floating underwater. Thinking he was in trouble, she grabbed a pole to pull him up, but he suddenly yanked her into the pool. Thankfully, he quickly pushed her back to safety, annoyed that his nap had been interrupted. Lu Wan was dumbfounded. He had been sleeping underwater? Because of the rumor, Lu Wan begged Ren Chu to clear her name on the school forum. He coolly refused, stating that his help came with a price. After some back and forth, Lu Wan found herself excited to have the opportunity to spend more time with Ren Chu. Ren Chu, however, remained indifferent. He led her to the locker rooms and told her to shower with him if she wanted his help. A wave of naughty thoughts flashed through Luan's mind, but it turned out he simply meant for her to change into dry clothes in the women's locker room. Later, dressed in matching sportswear, they walked across campus together, drawing stares from everyone. The fangirls were enraged, convinced that Luan was delusional, and love struck to even attempt to win over Renchu. In class, the teacher cautioned the students against puppy love and neglecting their studies, making Luan feel a pang of guilt. Coincidentally, Renchu was sitting in on that particular sociology class. Luan tried to sneak out when she spotted him, but the teacher called her back. Renchu only agreed to attend this class because he was on the verge of failing it. His best friend had pointed out that if he didn't show up, he wouldn't even be able to manage a simple smile, which meant he'd have no chance of passing. And so there he was, with a cryptic smile directed at Luan, deepening her curiosity. After class, Luan returned home to find her mother inquiring about Jiaxian. She'd heard the rumors that they were dating, but Luan just chuckled awkwardly and explained that he already had a girlfriend. Her mother, ever perceptive, immediately declared that Jiaxian wasn't good enough for her daughter. Anyway, much to Luan's relief, her father, equally supportive, excitedly started cooking dinner to celebrate. As Luan helped her mother at their fruit stand, Renchu suddenly appeared, wanting to buy some fruit. They bantered back and forth, and Renchu happened to mention Jiaxian. As if on cue, Jiaxian appeared, sending Luan diving for cover. He had come to invite her to dinner to apologize and thank her for the other night. Renchu, sensing an opportunity to socialize, readily agreed. Luan, not wanting to blow her cover, was forced to tag along. The dinner was incredibly awkward. Liang Jia asked about the rumors surrounding Luan and Renchu, but Luan quickly shut them down, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. On the walk back, Renchu and Luan were subjected to an unexpected display of affection by Jiaxian and Liang Jia. Seeing that Luan was feeling a little down, Renchu casually slung her over his shoulder and walked right past the lovebirds. Jiaxian and Liang Jia were speechless, while Luan couldn't help but feel a surge of smug satisfaction. When she got home, Luan was even more upset when she saw the lovey-dovey photos of Jiaxian and Liang Jia on social media. She decided to put away the picture of the three of them, ending their friendship. The next day at lunch, Luan was really annoyed to hear the fangirl gossiping about her and Renchu. Right then, Renchu sat down at the table next to her. Luan wrote a thank you note to Renchu for helping her out the night before and gave him a cake. This message unfortunately got read by his buddies, who read it out loud for the whole cafeteria to hear. That night, Luan brought the cake and was greeted by her friend, Fan Yi. He listened to her rant for a while in the karaoke room, then his friends arrived. As soon as she saw Renchu, Luan quickly jumped up and hid behind the chair, her movements as swift as a martial arts master. When he called her out, she found herself face to face with a girl who made her quite nervous because she thought she was Renchu's girlfriend. But he introduced her as his cousin, Xing Yu, who was studying at the dance school and had come to visit. Xing Yu even called Luan sister-in-law and took a picture with her to commemorate the occasion. Later, Renchu and Luan snuck out because he didn't like the noisy environment. They drove back to the dormitory on his Vespa, which was as slow as a turtle. They talked a lot on the way, but when they got back to the dorm, the gate was closed, which made Luan furious. Fortunately, the kind dorm manager let her in. The next morning, as soon as she opened her eyes, Luan heard the whole school spreading the rumor that she and Renchu had spent the night together. The rumor was embellished with so many details that she didn't know how to explain it. She came up with a plan to eliminate the rumor, then went to class to find Renchu and asked him to sign it. The scene shifted to Luan, hosting an interview session for new members of the baking club. She was disheartened to discover that all the girls who applied were there because of Renchu. Just when she was about to kick out anyone who joined for that reason, Renchu unexpectedly appeared, leaving Luan speechless. To deal with Renchu's untimely appearances, Luan led him to the anatomy lab, where her senior had taught her how to dissect a heart. Her intention was to humiliate Renchu and gain leverage over him. But things didn't go as planned. Renchu remained tough and mature. Her senior revealed that Renchu had already passed this class and had once vomited while watching a dissection during lunch. Luan seized upon this detail, deciding to find the security footage from that day to gain leverage over Renchu and force him to sign the agreement. The scene changed again to the next day's anatomy exam, where the teacher assigned 3 students to each group for the practical session. Luan was unlucky enough to be in the same group as Renchu and Jiaxian. The teacher asked Luan a question, but she froze up due to her anxiety and couldn't remember anything. After a moment of stammering, Jiashan stood up and answered for her. Lu Wan shyly asked the teacher for another chance to answer, but again, she felt flustered and didn't know what to say. The teacher angrily reprimanded Lu Wan. At this point, Ren Chu stood up and answered for her, smoothing things over. Seeing Lu Wan sitting alone on the grass, Ren Chu approached her, comforting her and inviting her to the supermarket. He proactively added her on WeChat for easier communication. They sat down together to discuss the rumor elimination contract. After agreeing on the terms, they shook hands on their partnership. The scene shifted to the baking club, where they met again to discuss the contract. Ren Chu carefully drew a map, marking safe zones within the school where they could meet comfortably. He even helped Lu Wan find a suitable target to address the rumors. The next day in the bathroom, he gave her a file containing the information of potential blind date candidates for her to choose from. With a quick glance, Lu Wan immediately chose a guy named Yu Yang without further thought. Back at the dormitory, Ren Chu prepared many books on love to study. His best friend, Fan Yi, thought he was practicing his dating skills with Lu Wan, but in reality, he was researching how to help Lu Wan conquer Yu Yang. As planned, the next day Lu Wan approached Yu Yang with an incredibly fake and textbook demeanor. Yu Yang looked at her as if she were a mental patient and was so terrified that he quickly ran away. Not willing to give up, Ren Chu continued to help Lu Wan. Just then, her senior, Shi Bai, arrived. Ren Chu asked him to share his experience with his love story. Ji Bai explained that he had taken the initiative to get to know Xin Yu, and because he was handsome, she fell for him after a few words. Following their next plan, Lu Wan went to an internet cafe and dressed differently to approach Yu Yang. Seeing her bothering him while he was playing games, Yu Yang angrily chased her away. Lu Wan, feeling frustrated, challenged Yu Yang to a team game. They both enthusiastically fought against the enemy team and won, making Yu Yang happy. He was surprised that she was such a good gamer, but he only saw her as a friend, not someone he wanted to date. Lu Wan was extremely disappointed when she heard this. Lu Wan reported the situation to Ren Chu, who was surprised because changing the data and methods hadn't yielded results. This forced him to come up with a different direction for her. The scene switched to Lu Wan reading a book in the library, when she ran into Jia Xian and Liang Xia. Just as she was trying to figure out how to retreat, Ren Chu appeared to help her out, pulling her confidently out of the library. The next day, Lu Wan asked Ren Chu to deliver sweets to Yu Yang as a way of building a relationship. Ren Chu agreed and even let Lu Wan try the new soy milk he had bought. But it tasted like plain water, so she advised him to change to a different shop. In reality, this soy milk was meticulously researched and prepared by Ren Chu himself to create the best soy milk. In the following days, he repeatedly asked Lu Wan to try his new soy milk recipes, but she kept drinking it and didn't find it tasty. As for the pastries, Lu Wan asked him to deliver to Yu Yang. Ren Chu ate them all. Finally, one day Lu Wan enjoyed the flavor of Ren Chu's soy milk. At the same time, he received a call informing him that he had been accepted into the PhD program at a university. Although highly regarded by his professor, Ren Chu declined to participate due to personal reasons. At the same time, Lu Wan angrily went to find Ren Chu because he had deceived her about Yu Yang. Not only did she fail to win over Yu Yang, but Ren Chu had eaten all her pastries. She was utterly heartbroken. The two argued about this big deception, and the rumor elimination contract was cancelled, leaving Lu Wan angry and resentful, so she left. After their argument, Ren Chu went to the library to research books, recalling details about him and Lu Wan, realizing he had fallen for her. The next day, Fan Yi announced that the school would be holding a real-life survival competition between clubs. Participation was mandatory, and each club had to send 3 members. When Fan Yi mentioned Lu Wan's baking club, Ren Chu was startled and went to find her. At that moment, Lu Wan was at the internet cafe, playing Counter-Strike with Yu Yang. She invited him to join the upcoming survival competition, and he immediately agreed. On Ren Chu's end, to avoid thinking about Lu Wan, he sought Shi Bai for advice on suppressing the love hormone. Ji Bai suggested avoiding close contact or forcing the brain to react against the love command. Later, at the club president's meeting, Ren Chu passed by Lu Wan and gave her a cup of avocado smoothie. Seeing him sitting next to Guan Ai, the school's most popular girl, Lu Wan became even more annoyed. He was actually trying to avoid her to prevent his body from releasing hormones that might cause him to lose his mind. When it came time to draw lots for the survival challenge teams, the computer system randomly assigned Lu Wan and Ren Chu to the same team, surprising everyone. After school, Guan Ai took the initiative to add Lu Wan on WeChat, which made her excited. Ren Chu held a meeting with Lu Wan. In the bathroom, to discuss their strategy for the upcoming survival competition. The scene shifted to the competition, where each participant was equipped with body armor, a helmet, and 100 paintballs to compete. The competition lasted 2 hours, so as soon as the signal was given, the teams rushed into the forest. Ren Chu waited for Lu Wan, but only saw his cousin, Xin Yu, dressed up beautifully to cheer him on. A while later, Guan Ai, in combat gear, appeared and said she was in the same team as Ren Chu, which surprised him. Meanwhile, Lu Wan approached Yu Yang and followed his team. Yu Yang devised a plan to attack and force Lu Wan to follow him. Seeing this couple's interaction, Lu Wan took out her gun and took down 2 of them. Yu Yang was impressed and called her comrade, which was so infuriating. Lu Wan was extremely disappointed and decided to stop playing, so she went to have lunch with Yu Yang. As Yu Yang was about to drink Lu Wan's bubble tea, Ren Chu suddenly pointed a gun at his head, threatening him. Then, the 3 of them sat down to chat. Unable to argue with Ren Chu, Lu Wan angrily left. Meanwhile, Xin Yu, Ren Chu's cousin, was walking around when she suddenly fell, sustaining an injury and becoming unconscious. Fan Yi received a call and immediately went to the area, sending messages to the other teams asking for assistance at the wooden bridge. When he arrived, he saw that Lu Wan was also injured, trying to appear weak to gain Yu Yang's attention. She even tried to ship Lu Wan with Yu Yang, hoping he would take her to the medical station. But Yu Yang refused because he still had to finish the game. Just then, Ren Chu appeared and took responsibility for taking Lu Wan away. He carried her away in front of everyone, his cool aura making everyone jealous. At the medical station, Xin Yu was taken by her senior, Shi Bai, and had her wound bandaged. Ren Chu took Lu Wan there and saw Xin Yu and Shi Bai being affectionate, so he didn't want to interrupt. Instead, he carefully bandaged Lu Wan's wound himself. Ren Chu's kindness left Lu Wan puzzled. Why was he so cold and indifferent one moment, and so gentle and attentive the next? Even more surprising was the fact that Ren Chu had actually taken the lead to give Lu Wan a kiss. The scene shifted to the next day, where Ren Chu dressed up smartly to go on a date with Lu Wan. He even practiced his lines to meet her in a cool way, but no matter how he did it, he felt a bit over the top. Seeing Lu Wan in the cafeteria, he acted tough and snatched her 2 bottles of water. Lu Wan was so embarrassed that she pulled her friend away. Her friend noticed something was wrong and suspected that they had done something at the medical station. Lu Wan couldn't argue, so she left. During class, Ren Chu returned the 2 bottles of water to Lu Wan outside. As she received them, she saw Ren Chu talking to Guan Ai, the school's most popular girl, which made her furious. At a restaurant, Lu Wan told Yu Yang about her kiss with Ren Chu. He immediately realized that Ren Chu had feelings for Lu Wan. She was still upset about being robbed of her first kiss. On the way back, Lu Wan told Yu Yang that she wanted to date him before, but now she had decided to stop, and they would become good friends. The next day, Lu Wan went to find Ren Chu, but she overheard him and his friends talking about female students in the school. She angrily questioned them. "Do you guys sit together and talk about these sick things?" She was angry on behalf of her fellow female students for being treated like trophies, and she continuously lashed out at Ren Chu, then left without giving him a chance to explain. At the baking club, Ren Chu found Lu Wan to help her practice drawing blood, as she had posted a notice looking for volunteers. Lu Wan was about to refuse, but considering the need to practice her professional skills, she agreed. As she was about to prick her finger, Lu Wan trembled and hesitated. Ren Chu encouraged her to be brave and helped her stay calm. Although she failed the first time, Ren Chu patiently comforted her, and Lu Wan succeeded on the second attempt. She thanked him and promised to make him pastries to compensate for the trouble. The next day, she put a box of pastries in Ren Chu's personal locker at the swimming pool and received a bottle of delicious soy milk that he had specially prepared. When she got home, she drank the soy milk and felt guilty because she had called him a jerk at the swimming pool, so she wanted to apologize. That night, she went to the changing room at the swimming pool to find Ren Chu's locker and do something secretly. Unfortunately, she was caught by Ren Chu. She actually just wanted to apologize for cursing at him earlier. Just as she was about to leave, Ren Chu mentioned the first kiss, which made Lu Wan freeze. They both clearly had feelings for each other. The next morning, Ren Chu went to Yingzhou University to visit the laboratory. There he happened to meet a senior who was having trouble with a malfunctioning robot with a faulty touch sensor. Ren Chu took one look and immediately figured out the problem and fixed it, making the senior very impressed. He could spot the problem just by looking, a true genius. To show his gratitude, the senior took Ren Chu for a tour around the university. Meanwhile, Lu Wan's baking club received a large order from Fan Yi for the swimming club for the upcoming competition. The requirement was for the pastries to be low in sugar and fat to avoid causing excitement. It turned out that this entire plan was orchestrated by Ren Chu beforehand. What a genius! Even in love he had to use a strategy, with the goal of making Lu Wan fall for him first. The scene shifted to the swimming club, where Lu Wan brought the pastries and was dazzled by the shirtless bodies of the guys there. While she was admiring them, Ren Chu pulled her into the changing room. She told him that it was just an occupational hazard for a medical student, and it was okay to look for a bit. Ren Chu angrily took off his shirt and told her to study his body too, making Lu Wan freeze. Then he let her out, covered her head with his jacket to prevent her from seeing anything, and took her out for a drive. Before they went home, Lu Wan demanded that Ren Chu pay for the pastries. Back at the baking club, Lu Wan continued her work on a skull-shaped cake as a gift for her best friend. Just then, Guan Ai arrived to buy the cake without asking what was inside. Before Lu Wan could explain, Guan Ai had already taken the cake. Meanwhile, Ren Chu and Shi Bai were trying their best to play a claw machine game to get a prize for Lu Wan, but the two of them were terrible at it. After 2 rounds, they hadn't caught a single prize. They were about to question the owner when a random kid playing the game managed to catch a prize, which was incredibly annoying. The scene shifted to the school swimming competition, where many spectators came to cheer for the hot boy, Ren Chu, including Guan Ai and Lu Wan. As expected, Ren Chu won the competition. Afterward, the 2 girls went to the changing room to congratulate Ren Chu. There, he showed more interest in Lu Wan than in Guan Ai's words, which made Guan Ai furious. He even accepted Lu Wan's pastries in front of Guan Ai, which made her mad. When she opened the box, Guan Ai was shocked to see a scary skull inside. After that, Ren Chu was determined to go back to the claw machine and get a stuffed animal for Lu Wan. Luckily, after some effort, he finally succeeded. Lu Wan received the stuffed animal from Ren Chu, along with heartfelt messages, which made her extremely happy and more optimistic than ever. The scene switched to the National Day holiday, where students returned home to visit their parents. Xingyu also said goodbye to Shi Bai and flew abroad to visit her family. Ren Chu decided to stay because his parents were on a business trip and hadn't returned yet. Lu Wan packed her bags and returned to her hometown with Yu Yang, bringing with her the new skeleton model she had bought. When they arrived home, Lu Wan's parents were very happy and invited Yu Yang to stay for dinner, but he declined because he had to go home to his mother urgently. Lu Wan's parents thought Yu Yang was her boyfriend, but Lu Wan quickly explained that he was just a good friend, making her mother slightly disappointed. Returning home, Lu Wan ran into Jia Xian, her old crush. They sat down to study together, and she recalled their fond memories from their high school days. Just then, Ren Chu came to Lu Wan's house and saw them both hunched over their studies. Jealousy surged in his heart, and he went to criticize Jia Xian about his teaching methods, accusing him of being stupid and still trying to teach others. Feeling annoyed, Jia Xian challenged Ren Chu to a competition. He would tutor Lu Wan, and she would score 2 points higher than him on the final exam. If he didn't succeed, Ren Chu's entire scholarship would belong to Jia Xian. Jia Xian readily agreed without asking Lu Wan's opinion, ignoring her attempts to stop him. The next morning, Ren Chu woke up Lu Wan to study. When she was having breakfast with her parents, her friend, Liang Jia, stopped by, making it more lively. While they were talking, Ren Chu and Jia Xian arrived to tutor Lu Wan. The whole family had breakfast in an awkward atmosphere. They began the review process, with Ren Chu using a direct question and answer method with Lu Wan using real-life medical cases. She answered in detail and fluently, showing that her knowledge was quite solid. Then, he had Lu Wan watch an English film without subtitles to practice reading lips. He even took the remote control so she couldn't cheat. After watching it once and not getting it right, Ren Chu made her watch it again. That night, Lu Wan invited Liang Xia to sleep over for company after being apart for many days. Liang Xia was about to go abroad with her parents, but she didn't dare to tell her boyfriend, Jia Xian. Liang Xia was very happy that Lu Wan wasn't angry and even wished her and Jia Xian well. After that, they reconciled and became as close as they were before. The next morning, the whole family went out to the streets to celebrate National Day, having a great time. The 3 friends were standing together when Ren Chu came over and teased them. Jia Xian forced Liang Xia to pull him away, leaving space for Lu Wan and Ren Chu. So, they spent the day together, happily celebrating National Day. After the holiday, Lu Wan had to return to school. Yu Yang came to pick her up and took advantage of the opportunity to ask Lu Wan's mother for a lot of fruits. As soon as they arrived at school, Ren Chu was waiting there, and Yu Yang had a very awkward greeting, making Lu Wan unsure whether to laugh or cry. In the creative lab, Ren Chu astonished his seniors with his miraculous robot invention. The robot even understood when its owner wanted to drink some wine, so it went out to find some for him. This achievement made everyone extremely impressed. Later, Ren Chu went to find his friend, Zibai, to ask why Lu Wan didn't want to date in college. Zibai was speechless, sighing that asking a clueless guy like him about a girl's love life was a bad choice. He only understood what Xin Yu liked, and he didn't want to pay attention to Lu Wan. He also teased Ren Chu, saying that he must be tutoring Lu Wan too much lately, making her too busy to ask him for help with her studies. Ren Chu immediately retorted, criticizing Xin Yu for being lazy and demanding without doing much work, causing Xin Yu to hide behind the desk, refusing to respond. She stood up angrily and scolded her cousin, saying he dared to talk bad about her in front of her crush. Ren Chu was curious why his cousin was there, looking at the messy clothes on her body. He was jealous because the two of them got to work together in the university laboratory. Xin Yu heard her cousin's story and advised Ren Chu that if he wanted to date Lu Wan, he should be proactive and confess his feelings to her. Lu Wan went to school with her classmate, telling her that she was lucky to have Ren Chu tutor her during the holiday. Her classmate was very surprised to hear that and suspected that the genius had feelings for Lu Wan. She immediately denied it, saying that geeks like Ren Chu only knew about numbers and letters and knew nothing about romantic love. Their personality only wanted to show off their good looks, but when they were exposed to a flaw, they'd get flustered. Later, Ren Chu went to find Lu Wan, wanting to confess his feelings, but Lu Wan's classmate in the room interrupted. He wanted to pull her aside to talk, but she had just finished cutting onions, and her eyes were burning. She stopped him and pulled her friend away, leaving Ren Chu standing there in a daze. In the afternoon, he went to find her again and prepared a heart-shaped equation to express his feelings. But when he gave it to her, Lu Wan became angry because she thought he was giving her a picture of someone's butt, unaware that he was trying to confess. She left again, leaving him alone. In the library, Lu Wan was quietly reading a book when Ren Chu arrived, scaring her so much that she dropped the book. They both bent down to pick it up and bumped their heads together. She apologized for her hard head, worried she had knocked all his words out of the book. He opened the book and saw Lu Wan's transfer application form and questioned her. He had tried so hard for her, and now she was easily giving up on the medical field, which he couldn't understand. She argued that geniuses like him couldn't understand the feelings of someone with no brains like her. She knew she couldn't criticize him, but he said she was wrong. When it came to baking, Ren Chu had to bow down to Lu Wan and call her his master. The next day, as Lu Wan walked around the schoolyard, she kept wondering why she could be so stupid. Meanwhile, Ren Chu was sitting down, about to eat the pastries he brought when Lu Wan came up to him, saying that she was so depressed. She tried a piece of his pastry and found it had a strange flavor. After a while, she became tipsy because Ren Chu Sr. had poured a whole bottle of liquor into the pastry. She asked him how he made it and learned that he had used molecular gastronomy. Even though it wasn't like normal pastry, it was still a pastry, just like her. Ren Chu was about to confess his feelings with a long speech he had practiced at home, when Lu Wan suddenly interrupted him. She couldn't believe he knew that her head was full of nonsense instead of brains, and she cried loudly out of despair. Then she decided to stay in the clinical department until she was good at it, then she'd leave. Seeing her determination, Ren Chu immediately wanted to help her, saying he would tutor her. In class, Ren Chu kept crawling back because Lu Wan was slowly walking towards him. He was only wearing pants and a tank top, looking miserable like he'd just lost his youth. Lu Wan confidently grabbed his collar and said that if she could do it again, she'd take responsibility for him. Just then, Qiao Qiao, who was also being grabbed by the collar, spoke up and pulled Lu Wan out of her dream. Yu Qiao told her that while drunk the previous night, she had harassed the dorm manager. Not only that, she had also confidently declared that she would win over Ren Chu, which Lu Wan couldn't believe. She went downstairs to ask the dorm manager and found out that she had even ripped Ren Chu's shirt the previous night, intending to assault him in front of the manager, leaving him with just a tank top to cover himself and shivering as he went home. But he still asked the manager to keep it a secret and not tell anyone. Just as she was relieved, thinking that Ren Chu wouldn't press charges, he texted her to meet him at the lab, making her disappointed because the time for her punishment had come so quickly. A while later, she sat in the lab waiting for Ren Chu. The seniors, who spent their days surrounded by books, couldn't take their eyes off the girl. They kept coming in and out like ants, spotting a sweet candy. Ren Chu came over and asked Lu Wan to help his seniors choose clothes for a dance party, because they only knew about their studies, not anything else. Lu Wan asked Ren Chu what she had done the night before. He told her that she had demanded to take off all his clothes in class to take his virginity, just like the dream she had. Then he led her to a bakery, because they were about to have a baking competition there. She was afraid that her fear of crowds would ruin the competition, but Ren Chu encouraged her, saying that he would help her overcome her fear, so why hesitate to sign up? In the afternoon, she regretted it and wanted Ren Chu to withdraw her application. She also refused to let him be her tutor, because she thought he had said it while drunk. But Ren Chu sincerely wanted to help Lu Wan and wouldn't let her refuse, so she reluctantly agreed. The next day, he asked some classmates to help grade Lu Wan's pastries to boost her confidence. They all praised it, not knowing how much they were being paid, which made her more confident. On the day of the competition, they baked together and were ridiculed by 2 judges. When the MC announced the winner, it wasn't her, and Lu Wan was disappointed and walked out. She wasn't reconciled to losing, but she realized that Ren Chu had helped her become more confident and perform more accurately, which surprised her a bit. Lu Wan went home and boasted to Qiao Qiao about it when Ren Chu called her downstairs. He had prepared the most modern oven for her, which surprised her. Downstairs, she recalled what Qiao Qiao had said about her declaring that she would win over Ren Chu, and started to suspect that she might have feelings for him. The next day, Xin Yu went to find Ren Chu, asking him to help her stop Shi Bai, because she was afraid of losing face to him when she performed. Ren Chu readily agreed. Just as Shi Bai arrived, Ren Chu quickly made up an excuse that he had been looking for him, and started asking some clueless questions to keep him busy. They talked about love for a while, and Shi Bai enlightened Ren Chu, telling him that a confession should be romantic, but couldn't be without humor, so that the other person would always remember that moment. Ren Chu learned a bit about how to woo a girl from Shi Bai. In the afternoon, Lu Wan and Qiao Qiao were on their way home when Ren Chu came over and offered to help her with her practical assignment. She was about to refuse, but Qiao Qiao readily agreed for her, not giving her a chance to refuse. While they were correcting the assignment, they accidentally got close to each other, making Lu Wan nervous and her heart racing. She didn't know how to handle the situation. When they were done, Ren Chu invited her to eat, but Lu Wan quickly refused because she was still shy. Qiao Qiao returned with coffee, and seeing that Ren Chu had finished the assignment, she invited him to eat as a way of thanking him. At the restaurant, Lu Wan shyly buried her face in her food, completely ignoring the other 2. Qiao Qiao asked Ren Chu what he thought of Lu Wan's personality. He said her personality was pretty normal, but she was very pretty, making Lu Wan blush. Ren Chu took out his tarot deck and showed it to the 2 girls. Gu Chao said that maybe he was going to fall in love with someone, which made Lu Wan choke on her drink. She pulled her friend out and scolded Gu Chao for making up stories. Her friend questioned her, saying, "You don't have any fluttering heart or fast heartbeat when you're around Ren Chu, do you?" This question made Lu Wan think long and hard. Later, she went to find Ren Chu, put a stethoscope on her heart, and reached out her hand wanting to hold his to confirm. Ren Chu saw this as an opportunity and reached out his hand. Just as their hands were about to touch, Lu Wan retracted hers and made up an excuse about the stethoscope being broken, but she couldn't understand her own actions. Was it because she liked him too much but wanted to keep it a secret? She was insecure because she thought she had no chance with the genius, so she left. Guan Ai, who was watching from afar, saw the 2 talking and ran over to ask Lu Wan about their relationship. After learning that there was nothing between them, she happily asked Lu Wan to teach her how to bake. The 2 went to the baking room, and Guan Ai asked to join Lu Wan's baking club. She was a little surprised, but happily agreed. As a member of the club, Guan Ai revealed to Lu Wan that she liked Ren Chu. Lu Wan was a little shocked, but when she heard Guan Ai say that Ren Chu considered her important, she became even more sad. Lu Wan was sitting alone in the room when Gu Chao came in. She was troubled because she had to choose between her friend and the person she liked, so she asked Gu Chao for advice. Gu Chao confidently said she would never share a man with her friend. Meanwhile, Guan Ai went to the library to confide in her friend. Her plan to flirt with Ren Chu was going well, as she had put pressure on Lu Wan. Her friend also had Ren Chu's phone number. Guan Ai called Ren Chu and falsely accused Lu Wan of giving her his phone number. The next day, Lu Wan went to present her practical assignment. Initially, she was very nervous because everyone was laughing at her. When she saw Ren Chu show up, she suddenly doubled her confidence, and her presentation became much more fluent. After she finished, she thanked Ren Chu. He blamed her for casually giving her phone number to Guan Ai, but Lu Wan had no idea what he was talking about. She thought he had feelings for Guan Ai, but was too embarrassed to say anything, so she advised him to admit it, making Ren Chu angry and leaving. Lu Wan chased after Guan Ai, who was sitting and crying, and comforted her. Guan Ai acted pitiful, wanting Lu Wan to admit that she liked Ren Chu. Because of their friendship, Lu Wan insisted that she didn't like Ren Chu. Just then, Ren Chu arrived and heard their conversation. Disappointed, he left. Seeing this, Lu Wan became even more embarrassed. Returning home, Lu Wan recalled Ren Chu's expression when she said she didn't like him. She didn't know if he was actually angry or if he didn't like her. The next day at the library, Ren Chu went to find Lu Wan and poured her several cups of soy milk, saying he had specially prepared them for her. She thought, he must think I'm flat-chested or something. That's why he's making me drink so much. This thought made her angry, and she decided not to drink a single drop. Ren Chu was puzzled, thinking he had followed the script, but it didn't work. Lu Wan intended to study diligently, but she fell asleep before long. When she woke up, she saw that Ren Chu had done half of her assignment for her. She teased him, saying, "If I had slept a bit longer, wouldn't the whole assignment be done?" Lu Wan returned from the bathroom and saw the familiar figure of Guan Ai clinging to Ren Chu, taking her seat. Oh well, she thought. She had already warmed up the chair, so she didn't bother to fight for it. She texted Ren Chu to keep Guan Ai there so she could go back and get her things. The next day in class, the class monitor announced that everyone should check their exam results online. Lu Wan held her breath and waited for the results. She was delighted to learn that she ranked 8-3. But her joy quickly turned to sadness because she remembered that she always ranked near the bottom. It was a gift for her goodbye that changing her major suddenly resulted in a high score. She invited Gu Qiao to celebrate, but before they could enjoy themselves, Ren Chu came to find Lu Wan to talk. The two went to the hallway. He blamed her for making him wait until the library closed, and still not coming to get her book, making Guan Ai cling to him, and he had to work hard to get away from her. Lu Wan thought they had a good future together, so even if they ended up together, she would still wish them happiness, even if it was only for one day. She invited Ren Chu to a farewell meal, but he refused, thinking that there was no need to say goodbye, since they were both healthy and complete. Lu Wan had to explain that she was inviting him to a farewell meal, because she was about to change majors. He went back to his room and saw his friend getting ready for a party. His friend even told him that Lu Wan had prepared a dance floor with beautiful dancers, which changed Ren Chu's mind, and he decided to go. That night, Lu Wan was angry when she didn't see Ren Chu at the party. It wasn't until he arrived that she cheered up. Suddenly, Guan Ai followed Ren Chu to the party and asked Lu Wan to let her join. And of course, she couldn't refuse. After sitting for a while, Guan Ai went on a date with Ren Chu to talk in private. Lu Wan went away to give them their space. Ren Chu followed, but he refused to sit with Guan Ai, which made her angry. When the sad part of the song started, Lu Wan looked over and saw that Ren Chu and Guan Ai also looked great together, making her a little disappointed. They were listening to the song when the singer sang too high, causing a power outage and making everyone run outside. Ren Chu quickly pulled Lu Wan into his arms to avoid being taken advantage of. As he led her outside, he bumped into a waiter. Luckily, he protected her. At the park, Ren Chu helped Lu Wan apply medicine. She thanked him for being friends with her. Ren Chu seized the opportunity and said they should make a friend agreement so that no one would deceive the other anymore. He advised her not to change majors, but she insisted on trying a different major with more handsome guys, making him angry and leaving. The next day, Lu Wan and Gu Qiao went to the school's outdoor exhibition to sell food. Seeing Ren Chu's friend there, Lu Wan asked about him and learned that he was doing something mysterious in the lab. Inside, Ren Chu was reprogramming the lock on a bracelet, making the seniors in the lab wonder why he was going through so much trouble. Outside, Lu Wan was tidying up her stall when Ren Chu crept up behind her. He was going to apologize to her, and if that didn't work, he was going to handcuff himself to her. But she apologized first, surprising him. She saw the handcuffs in his hand and was even more surprised, knowing he was also interested in these childish games. He apologized to her and gave her a turtle as a way of saying, sorry. Suddenly, one of his buddies came over to buy some pastries, making Ren Chu a bit annoyed. When he saw that she had even made a heart-shaped pastry for him, he became jealous and used a spoon to ruin the cake out of spite. She reprimanded him for ruining her afternoon's work, but he didn't show any remorse, making Lu Wan chase him away. From afar, he saw the buddy still there, playing with the turtle he had given Lu Wan. He angrily grabbed the handcuffs and headed over, intending to handcuff himself to Lu Wan. Out of nowhere, another buddy ran up and handcuffed himself to the other guy. Ren Chu knew he was done for, as he had programmed the lock so it couldn't be opened. The slick buddy was thrilled to be handcuffed to his heartthrob and wanted to go on a mission with him like everyone else. He dragged him over to help Lu Wan sell pastries, leaving the buddy helpless. When Lu Wan asked for a pastry to sell, Ren Chu saw Jia Shan's heart-shaped box of pastries and took it out to sell. He didn't listen to his buddy trying to stop him. Ren Chu successfully turned him into an accomplice. By the afternoon, they had sold all the pastries. Lu Wan discovered that Jia Xian's pastry was gone and turned to scold the two of them. Ren Chu bought another one to give to her. In the wishing tent, Ren Chu and Lu Wan apologized to each other for their outrageous behavior. He learned that Jia Xian had bought the pastries to celebrate his girlfriend's birthday, making him overjoyed. He went outside, unable to contain his excitement. Inside the tent, she saw a sheet of equations on a board. Ren Chu explained them to her. When the equations were put together, they formed the words, love. She didn't know who had done it, but if it had been her, she wouldn't have understood the meaning of the equations. Ren Chu, not daring to claim it was him, tried to cover up by inviting her to the fair. They went to the haunted house and heard a familiar scream, immediately getting an idea. They dressed up as ghosts and scared the cowardly Gu Chao and Fan Yi. But the heavens punished them with a heavy rain. He took his coat to cover them both, and they ran together in the rain. Back at the dormitory, she asked him if he had heard her confess that she didn't like him. Ren Chu said it was okay because they were going to be together anyway. Then, they named the little turtle after themselves, making Lu Wan feel flustered. In her room, Lu Wan was listening to Buddhist music and praying with her hands clasped. Gu Chao saw this and asked her about it. The two were delighted because after the final exam, they wouldn't have to go back to their hometown to celebrate the new year. Ren Chu texted Lu Wan to meet him outside, saying he wanted to say goodbye to the turtle, but the real purpose was obvious. The two of them sat at a restaurant, and he reminded the turtle to remember him and not to argue with each other, but she easily realized he was talking about them. When Lu Wan got home, she thought she'd have some peace and quiet, but her mother mentioned Ren Chu's name. She had heard her daughter say that he was spending New Year's at school, so she told Lu Wan to invite him home to celebrate the new year. The next morning, Lu Wan went to school to find Ren Chu and saw him buying oatmeal. Seeing him in such a pitiful state, she didn't hesitate to invite him home for New Year's Eve, so he could experience what New Year's protein tasted like. That afternoon, Lu Wan's family was wondering how to put up the red couplets when Ren Chu came over to help. Lu Wan's dad also wanted to contribute, but he accidentally locked everyone out while trying to put up the paper cuttings on the door. Ren Chu was tall and strong, so he climbed the wall to retrieve the key and unlocked the door for Lu Wan's family. She felt embarrassed because of the sweater her mother had knitted, but Ren Chu was envious because he had never worn family clothes before. Seeing how pitiful he was, her mother decided to give Ren Chu a sweater too. It's true that beautiful people look good, even in rags, and a sweater from a future mother-in-law is definitely not something to complain about. During the meal, everyone sat down to talk happily. During the conversation, they realized that Ren Chu's taste in women was very similar to Lu Wan's. Her father boldly asked Ren Chu what he thought of his daughter, making Lu Wan blush. Gu Chao called to wish Lu Wan a Happy New Year and asked if she had wished Ren Chu a Happy New Year. Lu Wan admitted that he was eating at her house. Gu Chao was surprised, thinking that Lu Wan had already brought him home to meet her family so quickly. In the evening, the whole family prepared to play cards together. After only a few rounds, family relationships had already been fractured. No longer father and son or husband and wife. Only the winner and loser remained at the table. Lu Wan shuffled the cards like a disciple of Stephen Chow. But how could she beat the hidden card master, Ren Chu? He won every round against Lu Wan's family, until the final round. To make Lu Wan happy, he chose not to beat her, allowing her to win the golden prize. Everyone sat down together to welcome the New Year's Eve. As the snow began to fall, Lu Wan ran outside to look at it. Ren Chu came up and put a scarf around her neck, and the two looked at each other bashfully, unable to speak. Standing on the balcony, she thoughtfully put a scarf on him and gave him the first red envelope of his life. A few days later, Ren Chu went to visit Lu Wan's house with a bunch of gifts for his future in-laws. He especially gifted her a pile of textbooks, probably wanting to tease her. When he went into the living room, he asked her about the stethoscope, and she showed him how to use it. The two of them warmed the stethoscope with their hands, and Lu Wan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. When she saw him off, she called him back and mustered up the courage to confess her feelings for him, wanting him to be her boyfriend. She was afraid he wouldn't agree, so she said he should be her boyfriend for one day to show off at her class reunion. She begged him to pretend to be her boyfriend, which made him very disappointed, but he agreed. She went back to her room and told Gu Chao, who was disappointed by her friend's foolish way of dealing with things. On the day of the class reunion, Lu Wan appeared with Ren Chu, making everyone in her class envious. When Lu Wan wasn't there, the girls all rushed to grab Ren Chu. The two of them ate together, from the moment they arrived until they finished. When they left, Lu Wan could still feel his love for her. She didn't expect that being his girlfriend would be so fun. It was already midnight, and she couldn't go home, so they rented a private internet cafe to hang out overnight. Gu Chao called and reminded Lu Wan to seize this opportunity. She went back to the internet cafe. Being bookworms, they didn't know how to play video games, which was understandable. Luckily, Ren Chu had prepared for this. He pulled out a stack of assignments for her to do, to pass the time. At midnight, Lu Wan couldn't resist her sleepiness and fell asleep. Ren Chu gently placed his coat over her and gazed at Lu Wan's cute sleeping face. The next morning, when they were leaving, Lu Wan was embarrassed and didn't know how to ask him to go out, so she made up an excuse to ask for help with her studies to see him again. Back at home, Lu Wan noticed that Ren Chu hadn't texted her yet and started imagining 1,000 reasons why he wasn't responding. She was so superstitious that she even went online to check their zodiac compatibility. Suddenly, Xin Yu called for help, asking her to come to school. Lu Wan saw this as a good reason to visit Ren Chu, so she told him before leaving. After solving Xin Yu's problem, Ren Chu took Lu Wan home. Gathering her courage, she shyly invited him to go out, but before she finished speaking, he agreed and invited her to the aquarium. The next day, she happily rode her bike to the aquarium and saw Ren Chu waiting there. Suddenly, she was disappointed to see Ren Chu's flamboyant buddy there too. Inside, the two were looking at each other happily when the dude interrupted them, dragging Ren Chu to see the fish with him. Gu Chao sent her a message of encouragement, and Lu Wan courageously stepped forward to express her feelings to him. With double the confidence, she went to find him to confess her feelings, something she hadn't dared to do before. They met on the same street, the atmosphere slightly awkward. As she was about to confess, she was once again stopped by the flamboyant buddy. He dragged them to watch the dolphin show, but they were late and couldn't get in. The two quietly stepped back, holding hands and running away. The next day in Lu Wan's class, the class monitor announced a secret ballot to choose participants for a competition. Lu Wan was confident that her name wouldn't be on the list, so she casually went to find some food. Later, she was surprised to learn that she had been chosen, because no one else was as free as she was. Then she went to find Ren Chu and gave him some pastries. When he learned that she would also be participating in the speech contest, he agreed to join her. Maybe because she had to go to the hospital for an internship the next day. She was sad, and the pastries she made didn't taste good. The next morning, he came to pick up Lu Wan for her internship at the hospital. When they got there, the doctor assigned her to receive supplies, making her basically a maid. She ran around all day receiving supplies, without learning anything. When they were leaving, Ren Chu was waiting for her in the lobby. He took her home, and they were talking happily when Guan Ai came to find Lu Wan and pulled her aside for a private conversation. She pretended to be innocent and asked Lu Wan to help her learn about Ren Chu's hobbies. But Lu Wan couldn't help because she liked Ren Chu, and this time she wasn't going to give in to her. The next day, Ren Chu came to pick her up again. She was so mesmerized by the genius in front of her that she couldn't resist the attraction, and her nose even started bleeding. As the competition approached, Guan Ai came over and said she would go easy on Lu Wan, but she didn't fear anyone. Ren Chu kindly bought her coffee, making Guan Ai furious. The competition began, and Ren Chu made the girls in the audience scream. Lu Wan stood up to challenge her, silencing the entire auditorium, even impressing Ren Chu. The two teams battled back and forth. Because of the intensity, Ren Chu admitted that he liked someone, which caused a stir in the auditorium. That day, Ren Chu and Lu Wan made plans to confess their feelings to each other, which surprised both of them. Although Lu Wan's best friend didn't agree at first, when she said she really liked Ren Chu, her friend flipped like a pancake and supported her in pursuing him. On Ren Chu's side, he seemed more reliable because he had a team of 100 brothers with the same goal, who were making plans to help him confess to Lu Wan successfully. The scene shifted to the hospital, where Xin Yu was sitting leisurely with a cancer treatment sheet in her hand. Bai passed by, read it and thought she was sick. He immediately dragged her to get checked up. But Xin Yu said she was fine, making Bai dumbfounded. Hearing his words of concern, Xin Yu was incredibly touched. She hugged him as a way of saying thank you. Back to Lu Wan and Gu Qiao. The two were making plans for their upcoming confession to Ren Chu. Lu Wan remembered that Xin Yu had shown her 36 strategies for confessing her feelings while they were at the hospital. Soon, the day arrived. Lu Wan put on makeup and spruced up her appearance to meet Ren Chu. But while she was waiting, Jia Xian came over and bluntly asked if Lu Wan had ever liked him. The two went to a quiet place to talk about their feelings. Lu Wan admitted that she had liked Jia Xian, but she had changed now and only had feelings for someone else. After their conversation, Lu Wan accidentally slipped and fell into Jia Xian's arms. Liang Xia happened to see this and misunderstood that they were dating. The two of them took turns explaining to Liang Xia, but she wouldn't listen with her ears. She only believed what she saw, and she angrily threw the pastry she had just bought at Lu Wan's face. The pastry hit Lu Wan right in the face, making her hide and try to get back to the dormitory. But before she could get away, Ren Chu showed up and called Lu Wan's name, which made her really embarrassed. He took her to wash her face and listened to her tell the whole chaotic story. Ren Chu gallantly helped her wash her hair. That afternoon, Ren Chu and his buddies meticulously set up balloons and decorations with a telescope to watch for shooting stars. As night fell, Lu Wan went outside, and the idea to confess her feelings to Ren Chu popped into her head. Suddenly, Jia Xian called with a frantic voice, saying that Liang Xia was missing. Lu Wan texted Ren Chu to say that she would be late because she was going to find Liang Xia. Shortly after, Lu Wan arrived at Liang Xia's location, but there were some scary-looking guys hanging out on the street, throwing pebbles. On the rooftop, Liang Xia was really mad at Lu Wan and wouldn't listen to her advice. After a while, Liang Xia was dragged back, completely drunk. But when they went downstairs, those guys followed them and tried to do something indecent. They surrounded the two girls, forcing them to use their Tai Chi to scare them. But before they could kick, Ren Chu appeared out of nowhere and dealt with the guys. His heroic rescue of the damsel in distress made Lu Wan fall head over heels for him. Later, the two returned home, but Lu Wan's hand was injured, so Ren Chu stopped by a convenience store to buy some first aid supplies. Lu Wan's mind was still racing, not knowing if she should confess her feelings to Ren Chu right there, when he blurted out that Lu Wan liked him, making her embarrassed and not knowing where to hide her face. But Ren Chu hadn't confessed yet, because he thought confessing in a convenience store would be too lame. When she got home, Lu Wan told Gu Chao the story, which surprised her friend. Back home, Ren Chu wasn't at peace either, which made his roommates feel strange. The next day, the 400-meter men's swimming competition was about to begin. In the stands, the girls were all cheering enthusiastically for Ren Chu, making Lu Wan feel uncomfortable. Understandably, because he was famous throughout the school. While she was sitting there, Gu Chao ran out to meet Fan Yi. He thoughtfully bought her a huge bouquet of flowers, but Gu Chao took a photo and sent it to Lu Wan with a message saying the flowers were from Ren Chu, which made her ecstatic. The swimming competition officially began. Ren Chu stepped out with the aura of a main character, making the girls in the stands swoon over his handsome looks. He swam with 100% effort and won a brilliant victory. After the competition, Lu Wan happily planned to go congratulate him, but she saw Ren Chu talking about love with Guan Ai. Angry, she stepped forward and spoke directly in front of the two of them. But this girl was strange. She was talking to herself, making Ren Chu dumbfounded. Lu Wan thought he still liked her, but her mouth said he didn't. Ren Chu was annoyed and gave her a bouquet of flowers, confessing his feelings. He admitted that he had liked her since their first meeting, and powerfully confirmed that Lu Wan was officially his girlfriend, making her overjoyed. Her joy was excessive, and when she stepped outside, she tripped on the stairs and fell flat on her face. As Lu Wan was being taken to the hospital, Xin Yu saw it and called Ren Chu. He ran as fast as he could to Lu Wan's hospital bed and stood there talking to himself. But in reality, Lu Wan was perfectly fine and had even bought some things to visit someone who had fallen down the stairs. When she entered the hospital room, she was surprised to see Ren Chu there. It turned out that Lu Wan had fallen, but Yu Yang happened to pass by and became a human shield, which is why he was injured. A while later, Lu Wan and Ren Chu went home together. They didn't talk to each other in the car, just looked at each other and smiled. When they got back to the dormitory, they officially became a couple. Lu Wan still called Ren Chu Senior, which he wasn't used to, so he had to correct her and make her call him Honey. When Lu Wan returned to her room, she saw Guan Ai crying outside. Lu Wan handed her a tissue and confided in her, advising her not to cry over a boy. If you lose one, there are others. The next day, the two newly minted couples went out to eat. Ren Chu was Lu Wan's ideal man, so he ordered all her favorite dishes. But as they were about to eat, Ren Chu tried to make Lu Wan think he was confessing his feelings, but instead, he ordered another plate of pasta for her, making her feel teased. Later, the four of them went to karaoke, but only Lu Wan and Ren Chu sang love songs, while the other two kept comforting each other. On the way home, neither of them knew what to say, just acted indifferent and walked away. The next day while doing their homework, no matter what Lu Wan asked, Ren Chu answered coldly. She looked over at the table next to them, seeing couples cuddling up to each other, and felt a little bit sad, even though she had a boyfriend sitting right next to her. The scene shifted to Lu Wan meeting Gu Chao. She didn't hesitate to badmouth Ren Chu, saying he was too bland and had no romance, making her sad. Seeing this, Gu Chao devised a plan for Lu Wan. Because Ren Chu and Lu Wan had been friends for a long time and knew each other's personalities, well, the only way was to make the other person experience new things about themselves, creating a new sense of inspiration. Lu Wan immediately took out her phone and texted Ren Chu, asking him to come over to her house for dinner that weekend. The weekend arrived, and Lu Wan was very nervous because she had never cooked before. She was very clumsy in the kitchen. Today, Ren Chu came over dressed up, as if he were attending a party at a 5-star hotel. The two of them were so busy talking that they didn't notice the food burning. What's more, Lu Wan even burned her hand, and Ren Chu had to hold her hand to treat her wound. They were becoming affectionate when Lu Wan's parents came home. The old couple were surprised to see their daughter in the kitchen for the first time, but she had only cooked one dish, so Lu Wan's father had to help out. At dinner, her parents wholeheartedly criticized her cooking. When they asked about Ren Chu's girlfriend, Lu Wan stood up and announced that she and Ren Chu were officially a couple, making her parents very surprised. After dinner, Lu Wan's father pulled Ren Chu aside to talk. He didn't say much, just told him to take good care of his daughter. Ren Chu agreed because he could handle that part. Later, he and Lu Wan went into her room to talk. Just as her father had said, Lu Wan was very messy. Ren Chu offered to clean up, but she wouldn't let him. After cleaning up, Lu Wan took out the book he had given her. It contained romantic English words that Ren Chu had compiled to write for her. He had heard Gu Chao say that he and Lu Wan had been friends for too long and were no longer romantic. So now Ren Chu had to do unique things to improve their relationship. He ended his visit to Lu Wan's home with a kiss, making her very happy. A few days later, they went to the movies together, but Lu Wan fell asleep and dreamed of Ren Chu kissing her. Afterward, they played a brain game. While Lu Wan was busy looking for the key to unlock the door, Ren Chu had already opened the safe and retrieved the key. The next round was to get through a laser obstacle course. Ren Chu only took a few seconds to get there and opened the door, making Lu Wan feel incredibly helpless and unable to believe her eyes. When they went outside, Lu Wan looked sad, so Ren Chu had to comfort her. The scene shifted to Xin Yu getting a checkup, and the person examining her was Shi Bai. During the first eye exam, Xin Yu sneezed. When he examined her ears, she kept thinking about Shi Bai, so he had to ask the third question before she responded. Because she was still angry at him from the previous incident, Xin Yu refused to continue the exam and left angrily. Meanwhile, Lu Wan and Ren Chu went to play sculpting. When it came to brain power, Lu Wan lost, but in sculpting, she was undefeated. Seeing him struggling, not knowing what to do, Lu Wan ran over, took his hand, and gave him all sorts of instructions. She seemed like his teacher. Later, they went to the place where their love began, but this time it wasn't Lu Wan winking, but Ren Chu. They took some commemorative photos to post online, but people said they were photoshopped, making Lu Wan very sad. But she was only sad for a short time before netizens swarmed in to gossip that they were dating, making Lu Wan feel very happy. They even kissed to prove their relationship, which shocked those people even more. Back home, Lu Wan was still excited and showed her girlfriends the gift that Ren Chu had sculpted. When she told them, her two friends became envious and went outside sadly. Shortly after, Liang Shaya called to announce that she had broken up with Jia Shan. Hearing her friend's words, Lu Wan felt a little sad because she had chosen her future instead of love. The scene shifted to Ren Chu's room, where he showed off the gift Lu Wan had sculpted for him. She had sculpted a skull for him that looked very cute, which made his roommates feel strange. It was the first gift he had ever received, so he was very excited and praised it wholeheartedly, saying it was beautiful. Meanwhile, Fan Yi and Gu Chao were out for dinner when he told her that a strange old man had touched his butt. She was very angry when she heard this. The next morning, Gu Chao got on the bus with him and caught the pervert in the act. Gu Chao used a few moves to scare the old man into running away. The main couple was baking together when Ren Chu announced that his lab was organizing an off-campus exchange program. for a month in another province. When Lu Wan heard this, her mood soured because she had to be apart from him for a whole month. But she didn't stay sad for long, because Ren Chu brought out a long-distance relationship contract, making Lu Wan happy again. Her conditions: first, he had to pin her messages at the top of his WeChat. He had to reply to her messages quickly, and if he was busy and couldn't reply, he had to let her know what he was doing. Ren Chu agreed because he considered his girlfriend to be everything. After writing the contract, he gave her a kiss as a goodbye gift for the month he would be away. Soon, the day came when Ren Chu had to leave. At the airport, he gave Lu Wan many instructions and accepted the box of chocolates she had made with her own hands. After saying goodbye, she bought some things and took them to Yu Yang, who was in the hospital. The scene shifted to the next day, when Fan Yi unexpectedly gave Gu Qiabao a designer bag. She had a feeling it might be fake, because Fan Yi was a poor student who didn't have much money. However, Fan Yi's decisive attitude made Gu Qiao start to believe that it was real. Suddenly, Fan Yi received an urgent text message asking him to call Lu Wan back urgently. The school's main building was very old, and the school planned to demolish it and build a new one, along with reorganizing the clubs. However, Lu Wan's baking club had few activities and was facing the risk of being dissolved. That night, Lu Wan called Ren Chu with a sad expression. He also knew about the baking club being dissolved, so he promised Lu Wan that he would help her keep it after he finished his internship. Back in her room, Lu Wan tried to use the smart device Ren Chu had given her and found it very interesting, as if he were right beside her. Gu Qiao was curious and wanted to try it, but couldn't set it up because the device was only for Lu Wan. The next day, Ren Chu was busy with his work when Lu Wan texted him to come down and get the food she had ordered. He rushed downstairs and was surprised to receive a big gift: Lu Wan. That night after dinner with everyone, Ren Chu took Lu Wan to look at the stars. As she was intently looking at the sky, he hugged her from behind, making Lu Wan feel extremely happy. In another corner, Shi Bai, using the experience he had learned from Ren Chu, intentionally topped up Xin Yu's phone bill and added her on WeChat. But he didn't show up. Even when Xin Yu called, he only showed his hand, which made her very angry, and she blocked him. The next day, Shi Bai went to where Xin Yu was practicing ballet and handed her a WeChat friend request, revealing that he was the one who topped up her phone bill and called her. He even read aloud each line on the request, making Xin Yu stunned, and she quickly unblocked him. Meanwhile, Lu Wan was baking when a delivery guy arrived with a bouquet of flowers from Ren Chu. But the delivery guy was actually Ren Chu in disguise. He took advantage of his break to visit his girlfriend and sneakily kissed Lu Wan to ease his longing for her. In the following days, the two kept texting and sending each other photos of what they were doing. Today, at the hospital, Lu Wan took on all the work herself and was very tired, with no time to text Ren Chu back. When she got home, her phone was dead, and she was so tired that she fell asleep. Ren Chu couldn't contact Lu Wan and thought she was ignoring him. He read a WeChat post, saying that if a love message isn't responded to in 24 hours, it means there are no feelings left. He was very worried because he and Lu Wan hadn't been in contact for 13 hours and 40 minutes. So he called a friend to ask for help. The next morning, as soon as she woke up, Lu Wan realized she had slept in and quickly ran to the hospital. She also called Ren Chu so he wouldn't worry. Because she was late, Lu Wan missed the head nurse's briefing on the work schedule. When a patient's family came to ask her a question, she was flustered and made them angry, forcing the head nurse to intervene. In her office, the head nurse reprimanded Lu Wan for being late and for her disrespectful attitude toward the patient's family. That night, Lu Wan sat alone in her small room, feeling sad because the head nurse's reprimands were still echoing in her mind. When her phone rang, she saw Ren Chu's name on the screen. He told her to turn around, and Lu Wan did what he said. Twinkling lights led her to a corner of the room where gifts had been prepared. Each step she took, she found a small, beautiful item that Ren Chu had meticulously chosen to help her with her work and daily life. Lu Wan thought Ren Chu was there, but when she turned around, she only saw Gu Qiao and Fan Yi smiling. It turned out that all these wonderful things had been prepared by Ren Chu with the help of his two good friends to surprise her after a long, tiring day. Back in her original seat, Lu Wan took out her phone and called Ren Chu, thanking him for everything he had done. A few days later, as Lu Wan was on her way somewhere and called Ren Chu, he suddenly appeared from behind. She happily jumped up and hugged Ren Chu, while he showed off the last chocolate she had made for him and fed it to her. He didn't forget to give her a sweet kiss. The next day, the two decided to go on a trip to relieve stress. When they got to the airport, Lu Wan had just put a scoop of ice cream in her mouth when she was startled and spit it out because she saw Ren Chu's parents there. Ren Chu quickly introduced her to his parents, while Lu Wan acted shy. During the meal, Lu Wan's legs trembled, making the food on the table move with them, but thanks to Ren Chu's parents' encouragement, she gradually became more confident and started talking more, making them smile. Soon they said goodbye to his parents and boarded the plane. On the plane, Lu Wan watched a movie, but she kept imagining ghosts, which scared her. When they got to their destination, she looked around and saw a deserted, desolate landscape. That night, because she was so scared of ghosts, Lu Wan ran out and demanded to sleep with Ren Chu. Of course, he agreed and even read to her to help her fall asleep. Today, Lu Wan meticulously prepared a nutritious breakfast for her 3 friends. But Ren Chu seemed unwell. When she asked him about it, she learned that he hadn't slept all night because he had to keep adjusting his sleeping position for her. Later, Lu Wan and Ren Chu went up the mountain to see the flowers, while Sinu's leg was hurting, so she stayed behind to get a massage from Shi Bai. After seeing the flowers, the 4 of them went to a place that Ren Chu had prepared for Lu Wan. There, he recited some sweet love poems, making Lu Wan feel like she was swimming in honey. A few days later, Liang Xia had to go to a different place to change herself, and today Lu Wan and Ren Chu went to see her off. Jia Xian also came to say goodbye to Liang Xia. Seeing Lu Wan and Ren Chu being affectionate, Jia Xian felt a bit sad because he used to be happy with Liang Xia, but now it was too late. The next day, everyone prepared a surprise for Lu Wan. Gu Chao had completed the first step, dragging Lu Wan to the meeting place. When she got there, Lu Wan saw Ren Chu in a wedding suit. He gave them 2 sets of clothes to choose from. Gu Chao cleverly chose blue, leaving the red for Lu Wan to wear to match Ren Chu's. When Lu Wan put on the clothes and walked in, everyone was amazed by her beauty. Each person played a different role in the performance. While all 3 couples looked great, Yu Yang, being single, could only play the midwife. Everyone quickly searched for clues. During the part where the bride was carried in a sedan chair, all 4 people said that Lu Wan was a bit heavy today, but it was actually Yu Yang in the sedan chair. That night, when Ren Chu removed the veil, he was surprised to find that it wasn't Lu Wan. He rushed to find Lu Wan and pulled her into the room to redo the ceremony. During the drinking part, Lu Wan didn't drink well, so she got drunk after just 1 cup. Losing control, she pulled Ren Chu into the bed, and the 2 quickly got intimate. The next morning, as soon as he woke up, Ren Chu took out a ring and proposed to Lu Wan. Of course, she was overjoyed and agreed. But just then, she had a stomach ache, and everyone rushed her to the hospital. After surgery, Ren Chu continued his study exchange, as agreed. The 2 were like lovers who had experienced life and death together, not caring about anything but each other. They were like old couples who understood and trusted each other. Although they were far apart, their hearts were not. Their rare date made them cherish it all the more. And the movie ends here. Thank you for your attention and watching.